So we have got another 49ers update. This has been one of the most intriguing stories of the month. And finally, we have Arik Armstead's side of it. He decided to go onto his podcast and talk about his side of the story after the NFL owners' meetings. And I think that the timing probably is not coincidental because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch don't have a scheduled press conference now until April 22nd. They can always hop onto the radio and tell their side of the story, but I think the 49ers are just going to let this be. They're going to let Armstead have the last word that I think that he wanted. Why don't we have a listen in to what Arik Armstead said about the negotiations ahead of his release when the 49ers asked him to
This
pay cut?
is business, but also in football, business mixes with personal. We have personal relationships um, as coaches and as executives, and I know them and they know me. They've been around me for 7 years, so business does mix with personal, and that's why these situations are tough because, um, it's just more than just numbers, and we're dealing with people, and we're dealing with good people, and so I understand that football business you have to make tough decisions, and so they extended an offer to me of $6 million for a 1-year deal with incentives to go up to like 8. And when they sent that over, I did feel extremely disrespected. I don't feel that level of compensation is nowhere near the type of player that I am, and not even just the type of player that I am. What I've committed to the game, what I've committed to my team, what I've committed to the organization and my community.
So Arik Armstead said that he felt disrespected. Obviously, we know how this story ended. Trent Baalke, the former 49ers general manager who actually drafted Armstead at number 17 overall to San Francisco in 2015, he's now in charge of Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is paying Arik Armstead roughly $14 million per year. 14.5, I think he can make this year, and then he's guaranteed a $14 million option bonus next season. So $28 million fully guaranteed over the next 2 seasons for Arik Armstead from Jacksonville. We knew that was going to be more than the 49ers had committed to pay him because they only had him under contract for 2024. So the question is, was he disrespected? Was he not disrespected? Was this just business? Where does the truth lie? I'm going to go through the individual pillars of this situation. We're going to avoid all misinformation, and we're going to talk about what actually happened, what the facts are. And we're going to trace this from start to finish so we can finally put it to rest so Arik Armstead can go play his football for Jacksonville so the 49ers can move on with Malik Collins. But here's the thing, and this is the full summary, and I was able to provide this for you on Twitter, so we can go through this from top to bottom. Arik Armstead said that his initial goal entering this past season was securing a 4-year, $80 million extension. That means $20 million per year. He had been paid $17 million per year on his 49ers contract that was signed in 2020. And he felt that if he kept on playing well, because don't get me wrong, Arik Armstead was a really good player for the 49ers, especially when he was available. He thought that with a nice, good season, he could ask for his third contract, and his goal was $20 million per year, 4 years, $80 million. Armstead felt that he was on track for that up until week 13 at Philadelphia. That is when he tore his meniscus. So that injury sidelined Arik Armstead for the rest of the regular season, obviously threw him off track to be paid 4 years, $80 million. He still was going to have 2024 under contract with the 49ers, but he figured that they would be interested in an extension before then to actually lower his 2024 cap hit. But that injury obviously derailed things. However, Armstead believed that because he worked so hard to return from that injury, and since he still wasn't fully healed yet, he played through a torn meniscus. And let's not lie here. Arik Armstead played very well in the playoffs, I mean, the big-time fumble forced against the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship game, and then he got to the quarterback in the Super Bowl. I thought he was really good, even though he's playing through that torn meniscus in the Super Bowl. Arik Armstead, the way that he explained it today, said that he thought that he had made up for the time that he lost due to the torn meniscus. And obviously the plantar fasciitis has been part of this as well. He's been dealing with that for the past 2 seasons. That might be the bigger issue for the 49ers, but he thought he had made up for all of that with how well he played in the postseason. Well, so we move on. The 49ers at that point after the Super Bowl told Arik Armstead that they wanted to extend him right here. But according to Armstead, they never gave him specific numbers. So we don't know if this was just lip service in the 49ers. That eventually led to the inflection point. The 49ers told Arik Armstead that they wanted him to take a pay cut of about $12 million because remember, Armstead was due about $18 million this season. But the 49ers, even though he was offered initially scheduled for $18 million, none of which was guaranteed, according to Armstead, the 49ers offered him $6 million with expandability up to $8 million via incentives. So for all intents and purposes, that is a $10 to $12 million pay cut that the 49ers told Armstead they wanted him to take. Armstead, quote, when they sent that over, I did feel extremely disrespected. I can't accept this and live with myself. I even told them I can't come to the building the same way. So I had to bet on myself. I really didn't know what other teams thought of my market value. So at that point, Arik Armstead told the 49ers, and this is all according to him. We haven't had a chance to hear a rebuttal from them because Arik Armstead said this after the owners' meetings, and we just had press conferences with John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and Jed York in consecutive days. But Arik Armstead said that he did give the 49ers a chance to counteroffer, but we don't know if and what the 49ers counteroffered. He just, in his video, in the podcast, Arik Armstead simply left it at that. So we know that the 49ers initial offer was $6 million, expandable to $8 million. We know that Armstead eventually ended up leaving after a release and signing a deal worth about $14 million annually with Jacksonville. But we don't know if the 49ers final offer was that $6 million expandable to $8 million. Armstead insinuated that they might have counteroffered. He said that he gave them a chance to, but he left out the part as to whether or not he gave the 49ers a chance to counteroffer. So we have to fill in the blanks ourselves. We do know that the 49ers replaced Arik Armstead with Malik Collins. They traded with the Houston Texans for Malik Collins, and they're paying him $8.47 million this season. So we know that at least $8.47 million is in the 49ers budget for that defensive tackle position this season. It might not be coincidental that the 49ers offered Arik Armstead a contract worth up to $8 million, which is roughly equal to Malik Collins' $8.47 million. It could be that the 49ers, due to the whole Brock Purdy situation, due to the whole salary cap situation, they're going to pay Brandon Ayuk this offseason. They've got a tight salary cap deal that they're working with. It could be that they decided we need to max out at spending about $8 million, maybe $8 to $9 million on that Arik Armstead defensive tackle spot in 2024. It could be that they had a strict budget because otherwise the sink is going to overflow and there'll be a ton of other collateral damage around the roster if they do have to pay Brock Purdy and their books are not evened out. We don't know exactly where the even out number is because nobody knows exactly how big the salary cap is going to be in 2025. So this is a game of guess and check in many ways. The 49ers have done a good job guessing over the course of the past few seasons and building up a really good roster without getting into salary cap hell. But they've got to continue making hard decisions to make sure they don't cross into salary cap hell. And we know that John Lynch, on the record this week, said we needed to lower Arik Armstead's number. We couldn't have him at the $18 million number that he was set to play at this season. So the 49ers offered Arik Armstead $6 million, expandable to $8 million. He didn't take it. We don't know if there was a counter offer. They ended up paying Malik Collins to take Arik Armstead's spot at $8.47 million. The big question in my mind is, was that the budget? Were the 49ers willing to go over $8 or $9 million for Arik Armstead? Were they willing to go to 10, 11, 12? We don't know. Based on the initial offer, I think the answer is no, because if you're only offering 6 to begin, it would be radical to expand your offer up to 12 million. I think at the end of the day, the injury situation for Arik Armstead over the past 2 seasons, the fact that he missed 13 games ended up playing the largest factor in how the 49ers approached this situation. Armstead, when you heard him talk, he seemed to think that he should be paid based on his past production, his past reputation. But the 49ers valued him with a look toward the future. They said, okay, we've seen the 13 games missed over the past 2 seasons. We're projecting forward into the future. Something like plantar fasciitis is typically a chronic condition. We don't think that you're going to be consistently available for us moving forward to a level that we can afford to pay you up to our budget. So, and again, I don't know the budget, but we do know that it was at least $8.47 million. And we do know that the initial offer to Arik Armstead was only $6 million, according to Armstead himself today, although it was expandable to $8 million. So the 49ers ended up obviously going to Collins, going for more durability. Collins hasn't missed a whole lot of time. Armstead has missed those 13 games. And from a strictly business sense, it's hard to argue with the 49ers rationale here, right? Every single signing this offseason seems to have been focused on durability, dependability up front, and cost efficiency. So the Armstead pay cut request from the 49ers was based on that as well. They wanted a more cost-efficient deal based on the fact that the player himself had not been available for them enough over the past 2 seasons. Armstead didn't take the deal. He was able to test his market value instead. And Jacksonville, I think it's fitting. Trent Baalke has been a player who's taken a chance, has been a GM that's taken a chance on injured players in the past. He was willing to give Armstead $14 million, not only for this season, but next season as well. That was a season that Armstead wasn't even under contract with the 49ers. So that was obviously higher than anything the 49ers would have ever offered based on the initial offer of $6 million. Incentives up to $8 million. The thing is that value is dependent on desire from wherever it's coming from, right? And the 49ers, they had a certain cap for that defensive tackle position given their salary cap situation. And very apparently the Jacksonville Jaguars did not. The Jags cap was much higher than the cap that the 49ers had for that particular position, because $14 million is a whole lot different than $6 or even $8 million in this case. So it's good for Arik Armstead. He pockets a whole lot more money with Jacksonville. The 49ers are going to have to roll with Malik Collins. Is he a downgrade? I think a healthy Armstead is better than a healthy Malik Collins. Yes, but availability is the best ability. And I think that Malik Collins has shown that at this stage of his career, relative to the stage of career that Arik Armstead is in, he has indeed been more available. And this is all business and a salary cap maneuver with Brock Purdy in mind. If you want to take a look at the 49ers books, given all of this now, here they are. They need to try to carry over as much money as possible into 2025. Unused salary cap space can be carried over. Right now, I have the 49ers projected to be able to carry over $28.4 million, although there will still be expenditures to reduce that number in this 2024 season. Once Armstead fully comes off the books, that's going to be on June 2nd, since they designated him for a post-June 1st release. That $18 million that I was talking about that the 49ers initially had earmarked for Armstead this year will no longer be in their salary cap situation. Right now, this sheet right here is a post-June 1st sheet. So right now, I have Armstead's dead money listed as $10 million. That's the money that the 49ers have already paid him, but hasn't yet hit the cap, thanks to signing bonus, restructures, all that good stuff. So the cap situation is healthy for the 49ers right now. It would be a lot less healthy if Armstead were on this roster. It'd be $10 million more expensive. That was the difference between him and Malik Collins. And to answer the question, do the 49ers disrespect Arik Armstead? Well, I think that the answer to that depends on whether or not they counteroffered. If the 49ers did not counteroffer and Armstead didn't let us know, and we really have no way of firmly knowing for a few days now, for a few weeks, I guess, because John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan won't speak until the week of the draft. if the 49ers initial offer was $6 million, expandable to $8 million, and Armstead did indeed get a contract worth 2x that on the open market, and you could see how he could feel disrespected. But if this was an open-ended negotiation, if the 49ers were able to move up to 10, 11, 12 million, I don't know if they did. Again, we don't have the answer to that question. If the 49ers were willing to do that, then it's hard to argue that Arik Armstead was disrespected, because the truth of the matter is that the 49ers have a tight salary cap situation. The truth of the matter is that Arik Armstead did miss those 13 games over the past 2 seasons. Plantar fasciitis is a concerning condition. The 49ers are trying to get more durable. They're trying to get younger. All of those things are true. Sometimes business just ends up being business, and you have to go with the more cost-efficient play, and that's because you're thinking about carrying over as much money as possible into next season. You can think of it this way. You might have to part with Arik Armstead a season early. You replace him at cost efficiency with somebody like Malik Collins to save those $10 million and maintain a lot of the same productivity. Maybe not all of it, but you maintain it at a much cheaper rate than if Arik Armstead were on this football team. And you try to win as much as you can now, but this could help you save 2, 3, maybe even 4 players a year from now when it comes time to pay Brock Purdy and you have to make some tough decisions on the salary cap. Similar to the DeForest Buckner situation, who cost $4 million annually more than Arik Armstead, $21 million versus $17 in 2020, right? But that's $4 million over 4 years. That's $16 million total. That could be the difference between a player 2 or 3 down the road. So they decided to keep Armstead, trade Buckner in 2020. They got amazing value in return for DeForest Buckner. They got a top half first-round pick. You can have faults with what the 49ers used to pick for Javon Kinlaw, who obviously saw injury issues of his own and was not able to, I think, fill the shoes of DeForest Buckner over those 4 years. But the value that the 49ers got, the money that they saved, allowed them to keep a whole lot of players. Maybe Jimmy Ward was able to stay with the team there for a couple more years. Stuff like that, I think, became possible for the 49ers thanks to that maneuver. So you could look at this in much the same way. You swap Collins out for Armstead, kind of like you swapped or picked Armstead over Buckner. You save the $10 million and you move forward as a team if you're the 49ers, trying to be as cost efficient as possible. That is the strategy behind the whole thing for San Francisco. So I'm going to open this up to a 49ers Q&A. By the way, thank you to everybody who has subscribed. 70K. It's a big deal. We're at 70,000 and counting subscribers. So thank you for that. I'm going to open up that Q&A. Richard says it's a business, end of story. Yes, which is why I make spreadsheets like this. Cost efficiency, value, all those things are very, very important. Jack says, for me, I'm sad to see him go, but I respect the decision by both parties. 49ers couldn't justify paying him, and he wanted to test his value and got a bag for 2 years. It's exactly what happened. Sometimes both sides can win. Arik Armstead has definitely won the financial aspect of this. The Jacksonville Jaguars have to pay him, and maybe the 49ers will win this too. Maybe Malik Collins is going to give them the bang for the buck with his play that they have really needed. I think they believe in that. One thing about Malik Collins is that they're paying $8.47 million for him this year, but he might be better than an $8.47 million player. Why? Because he was on a 3-year deal with Houston, and Houston had already paid his signing bonus. So Houston, I think it was like a $12 million, maybe an $11 or $12 million deal with the Texans. I'm going to check that in a little bit to make sure I'm right. But it was definitely worth more than 8.47. When you trade for a player, you are only on the hook for his salary this year and the bonuses this year. You're not on the hook for the signing bonus, which has already been paid by the team that traded him. So in a way, the 49ers have gotten value here, and that Malik Collins was valued at more than an $8.47 million player, but the 49ers are only paying that rate. So say that he's a $10 million player, an $11 million player, whatever number you want to throw out there. The 49ers are getting him at 8.47 in a time when their cap situation is so crunched that they had a penny pinch with Arik Armstead. That's the kind of value that you want to find, you want to scrounge for in times like these if you are the 49ers. So Collins, put it at $11 million. Niners getting him at 8.47. That's a $2.5 million discount. If you want to compare that to what they might have been able to get with Armstead, well, he says that the initial offer was 6 and 8 with incentives. That's right around this. That would have been, what do you think? Is Armstead an $11-12 million player? Jacksonville valued him at 14. And if Armstead wasn't going to agree to anything that the 49ers put out there, including a counter offer, then the 49ers just had to ride with what they set up here. And I think that if you do offer Armstead a lower amount like the 49ers did here, at the very least, you're prepared for him to walk. Right? Because the disrespect reaction is something that is very possible if you try to get a player to cut his pay by a third, right? By 2/3, really. If you try to go from 18 million in a season to 6 million. At the very least, the 49ers knew that parting ways with Armstead was a possibility. But I do think that 8 to 9 million, all the data shows us that might have been their budget for this position. And they decided to go 8 to 9 million for Malik Collins, a player who they believe is worth more than that because Houston's already paid off part of that signing bonus. It's fascinating. But again, we don't know fully until we know if and what the 49ers counteroffered. It's just it's like a massive piece of the puzzle that is still unanswered right now. It's a he said, she said situation, right? You have Armstead and the 49ers both saying that I think the 49ers at one point, I think through Adam Schefter probably, because that report seemed like it came from the team. There was a report on the night that all this news started coming a couple weeks ago that the two teams, the two sides had been close to a deal. Well, according to what Arik Armstead just said on his podcast, he wasn't close to a deal with the 49ers. But the 49ers insinuated that they were close to a deal a couple weeks ago. So to me, does that mean they're lying? No, it probably doesn't mean they're lying. It probably means that they counteroffered, but Armstead still didn't like that counteroffer. And Armstead is only telling us about the first offer, which obviously was far from a deal. So it's just one of those things where there's so much fog of war right now that until we know what the 49ers counteroffered, it's impossible to know exactly what happened. But we can deduce that the 49ers were okay with letting Armstead walk if this indeed was their initial offer to him. Because the disrespect reaction, that could definitely happen. When a guy played well through a torn meniscus in the playoffs, when he's been as good in the community and as big of a part of the team as he's been, I mean, they call him the blueprint, right? I mean, he's literally called the blueprint inside that 49ers building, or he was called the blueprint for all those years. When it's one of those things where guys like that, you're A-listers, and even if they've faded off of the A-list because you do have availability concerns, there is a certain decorum in contract proceedings that if you really want to hold on to them and keep them happy and do that, you've got to go out there and offer them an amount of money that is not going to lead to the disrespect reaction. And the 49ers reaction, the 49ers offers seem to lead to that. And that's nothing against the 49ers until we actually know more information, because again, it very well could have been that the San Francisco 49ers had a strict budget for that defensive tackle spot. Everything about their actions so far suggests, in fact, that they did have a strict budget there, that Malik Collins at $8.47 million, that isn't any higher than 8 or 9 million, right? That's right in between those two numbers. And it seems that the 49ers really did want to set themselves up for the future with Brock Purdy in mind. All right, I'm going to continue with the Q&A. We're going to we can open up the salary cap sheet. I'm going to go back into the comments section. My favorite informational nugget from the owners meeting. All right, well, here, why don't we get on to the owners meeting? I have this piece up on The Athletic today. By the way, Arik Armstead's podcast, Third and Long, you could look them up. Credit for the video. That was good that they put that out there. If you want owners meeting nuggets, this is for you. Mike, can you take this and toss it into the description, please? I'm going to send this to Mike. You could sign up for The Athletic right now. Good rate a month, and you can get through a ton of stuff. I mean, I went through everything from Jed York, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch. Maybe my favorite nugget, and I didn't write this one in any of these articles, but I can tell you right now, Brian Greasy's got a lot of respect around the NFL. Sam Darnold got a big-time pay raise from $4.5 million in 2023 to $10 million with Minnesota this year, and he barely played in games. The league really believes in the mechanical work that Brian Griese and the 49ers assistant QB coach Clay Kubiak have been doing with the entire room. And that's not just Brock Purdy turning into an MVP finalist and leading the league in QBR, although that's the main part of it. But Jimmy Garoppolo played excellent football under Brian Griese. You could go to Trey Lance. I thought that, he was such a raw prospect coming out of college, but some of the development that he made from the big looping motion and the shoddy footwork to how he looked last camp, which I think was a lot better, Griese gets credit. The league is crediting for him for that. So, and then, of course, Darnold last year. So I think that the 49ers have a weapon in Chris Kasarik, who's been able to turn careers around of defensive linemen. But look at what Brian Griese has been able to do at that quarterback position. I think it's important to not discount that. Griese has been very, very adept at working with what he has in that room and maximizing results. And there is a lot of respect. I've talked to people around the NFL about this. There's a lot of respect for Brian Griese. And I think it's just really exciting for the 49ers to put Brock Purdy now in a full offseason working with both Kyle Shanahan and Brian Griese. It's something that he hasn't had a chance to do yet because of the elbow injury last season. Isaac asks, who owns the 49ers, York family-wise? Well, the majority owner is now on the screen. Not me, Jed York. Jed York just purchased enough to own a majority stake in the 49ers from his mom, Denise DeBartolo York. That news came out during the owners' meeting. So majority owner of the San Francisco 49ers is this guy right here. He used to be the CEO. Now his title is majority owner. If somebody's saying $6 million is a slap in the face when you're under contract for $18 million a year, yeah, but this is, I see you have LeBron in your name there. This is not basketball or baseball. These aren't guaranteed contracts. So you could be under contract for $18 million, but if none of it's guaranteed, then it's funny money, right? So the team has the leverage to go in there and try to adjust that. Unless you're under contract for a guaranteed amount, you can't really treat it as if it's a gospel-like amount. Do I think Griese will get promoted in the next year to offensive coordinator, pass game coordinator? I think it's just like Chris Kasarik. They really like him working with the quarterbacks because he's been so good at the mechanical aspect of things and the mental aspect of things, getting quarterbacks to jive with the offense. That's all been really good stuff for the 49ers. So I know that he might have interests in climbing the coaching ladder. And in that case, the 49ers might have to give him more responsibility or higher pay to keep him around. But the results the 49ers have gotten from Brian Griese so far have been really good at the quarterback position. In this piece with Jed York, I go over so much, including some of the comp pick stuff. We'll have dedicated videos to this, but make sure you do check it out. 49ers getting a 4th-round comp pick instead of a 3rd-round comp pick. Them and Buffalo were both caught off guard. They weren't happy about that. We talk about the $75,000 overpay with Jed York and John Lynch and how that stripped the 49ers of a 2025 5th-round draft pick. So as you can tell, a lot of draft pick drama that was discussed at the owners' meetings. But I also talked to Andy Reid. There's a great conversation that Jed York had with Chris Collinsworth. And Jed York always thought that Chris Collinsworth, when he was calling those games on NBC, had a little bit of an anti-49ers bias. And it bugged Jed York over the years. And Jed now, after losing to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl twice, said that he understands why Chris Collinsworth might have a little bit of an anti-49ers tilt. And it's because Chris Collinsworth, as a Bengal, lost to Joe Montana and the 49ers twice in the Super Bowl. So the 49ers have been victims of the Mahomes buzzsaw twice, and they still, if you talk to Andy Reid, and I quote him in the story, it was the toss-up both times. The 49ers by no means were they a team that didn't belong on the same field as Mahomes. But the Bengals of the 80s, they also lost narrowly to the 49ers 2 times. And I thought that York's conversation with Collinsworth, and it's funny because I saw him talking to Chris Collinsworth at the big party at the NFL owners meetings on Monday night. I just thought that it was such a such an interesting parallel to draw, right? 49ers beating the Bengals twice in the 80s, and now the 49ers being on the losing end of that, losing twice to the Kansas City Chiefs in this 2000 and I guess the first, well, in the 2020s decade, because the first Super Bowl was in 2020. I want to find the imprinted ice from the owners' meetings. This was really cool. Maybe it's in, yeah, here it is. You guys ready for this? This is what the old-fashioned station at the owners' meetings looked like.
Anything for you, gentlemen?
You guys see that? It's NFL imprinted ice. I might be, and I should be able to get a better one with them actually imprinting the ice. That would be nice. I thought that I had a second video on here. And in the event that I don't, oh, I do. Here we go. Watch this.
Okay.
Why not?
We'll live right. Okay.
Why not?
We'll live right. Okay.
Why not?
We'll live right.
That's the NFL party for you. That's where Jed York talked to Chris Collinsworth the other day. And those old fashions were good. You could do, I mean, they had several different options. Crown Royal was one of them. And I had a Crown Royal old fashioned, and it wasn't bad. I might have had two. And then I did a show after that. We got a question. Have you heard anything about the front office trading up in the first round to take an offensive lineman? Listen, I think it's really possible. And I asked John Lynch about it. I asked Kyle Shanahan a little bit about it. And nothing that they said dissuaded me from thinking that this is a possibility. And let me offer you some data to support this notion. John Lynch even said that it is possible they trade up. He basically left everything on the table, but look how crowded this roster is. Then consider the fact that the 49ers have 10 picks in this draft. There is no way that 10 rookies are making this team, in my opinion, looking at this crowded roster. So if that's the case, your strategy might be to consolidate picks so that you draft theoretically better players or higher valued players in the draft. And then you have fewer of those, so you have a better chance of everybody or most of them making the team. Just the way I'm looking at it. Also, from a value sense, tackles higher in that first round tend to be the most valuable non-QB picks. The QB hit rate is so low that maybe tackles are better bets. But 49ers do need that tackle position. It typically is very expensive, not only in free agency, but also in the draft to get a guy that's going to be good. It's not easy to get him lower than the first round. They're picking at number 31. I think that the stars do align for a potential trade up if you are the 49ers. Can Ayuk leave next year if a deal isn't reached? If the 49ers franchise tag him, then no. So they can tag him. He'd be an unrestricted free agent if they don't. He's under contract for 24 this next season at $14.1 million. But the 49ers could tag him for something like 20-something million the next year. They could theoretically tag him twice. The threat of the tag is what helps teams in these negotiations because they can tell Brandon Ayuk and his representation when they sit down, they could say, hey, we have control to keep you here for $14.1 million in 2024, 20-something million in 2025, and the tag for the next year would be 120% of that original tag price. So the upper 20 millions in 2026, we can take these three. We can essentially give you a 3-year deal worth X amount of money, the sum of those three totals, and you don't have anything to say about it. So why don't we negotiate with that as a starting point? That's what the tag and the 50-year option combine. That's the kind of negotiating power that it gives a football team. What's it going to cost to move up into the 20s? You could probably do it by packaging together some picks. I think if you want to move up into the teens or even higher, then you might have to start talking about future picks. But I think to move up into the 20s, if you're at 31, just a few spots, you can probably package some of your your picks coming after the first round. That's one reason why the 49ers are unhappy that they've dropped from the third to the fourth round in that compensatory formula, because they would have had more trade ammunition. That would have given them theoretically more option power in this draft. I've done a video about this. Do I think the 49ers draft a running back? I do think they either draft one later on or they go in undrafted free agency for a running back. They absolutely need more running backs on here. They typically carry 4 running backs on the 53 plus use check. Right now they only have 3. They don't have anybody slotted as depth. So I think they need more in the room. So that's just natural. And I think that their best bet is trusting the R&D department. Find somebody with a very specific skill set that will fit well with you, kind of like Elijah Mitchell in 2021. Remember that Mitchell and Mason are both in their final season under contract. Mason would be I think either he's going to be one of the restricted types of free agents next year, but Mitchell will be an unrestricted free agent. You got 2 more years of McCaffrey. Juszczyk obviously just took a pay cut. That's a different solution though for fullback. I do think you need to add running backs to this room, but I don't think you want to use valuable draft capital this offseason. We're going to say thank you to Bill Nicholson, who's helping us celebrate 70,000. Thank you, Bill. Much appreciated. MTV Cribs Lombardi edition, maybe. I think we're going to have Margot on a live show tomorrow. I think that she finally has time to do her first off-season show, so that could be fun. Did the 49ers calculate the possibility of a big change in the kickoff rule when they brought along special teams players in free agency? I mean, I would hope so. I think that everybody knew that rule was coming. They don't have a return specialist for the punt game yet. And by extension, they didn't really sign anybody that's an obvious kickoff return specialist. I stick to what I was saying earlier. I think that the new kickoff return rules, between the fact that it's going to be safer and more like a standard offensive running play, I think they're perfect for putting Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey back there. I think the answers are probably already on the roster, although I'm not sure if the answer for punt return, which is the same, remains unchanged, is already on the roster. What's going on with the safety market? Well, the safety market's not doing too hot for the safeties. I think the 49ers are waiting this out, and if they can get one of these really good safeties, plus safeties, somebody like Justin Simmons, or you could go down a grade to Julian Blackmon, if they could get one of these guys at a team-friendly deal, they could be ready to go. It's one of those things where the 49ers have a little bit of cap flexibility. I think there still is some money earmarked for that safety position. It's just obvious with Talanoa Hufanga coming off that injury and Jerry Brown being a second-year guy, and really the only other legitimate option there being a backup in George Odom on the 53 projection. It's just natural that the 49ers would want to bolster that safety position. But the question is with whom? And if you can't get any of these players to meet your price, you use one of your 10 draft picks on it and you start to develop there. That being said, it does seem like another veteran backstop would be wise for the 49ers, because you can never count on a rookie to deliver immediately. Looking through more of your questions. I'm going to show you guys my hometown of Visalia right now as we answer more questions. Look at that. Visalia, California, the Fox Theater on Main Street. I figured this would be something that pumps up the Visalia people. That's the Mineral King Bowl, the site of the Cowhide game between Mount Whitney and Redwood High Schools. I went to Mount Whitney, but they play for a piece of cow skin, the cowhide at the Mineral King Bowl. The baseball field, Redwoods baseball field, that's named after Aaron Hill, former San Francisco Giant for a short period of time. Fly back down Main Street. The Fox Theater, of course. We'll go over Fugazi's. It'll be good. Bank of the Sierra over there. All right. While we look at Visalia, I'll be happy to answer some more of your 49ers questions. We have wonders about how Danny Gray will fit with the 49ers. Well, he might not fit with the 49ers. He's going to have to prove himself during this training camp. I think that's one of those things that when you look at Danny Gray, he was healthy last year for San Francisco for a long period of time, but they didn't activate him from injured reserve. So if that's the case, then what's to change this year, right? He's going to have to prove that something is different going between 2023 and 2024. He doesn't run a 4.240. Somebody put here. I think he runs a 4.3, but again, speed is one of those things that isn't everything in football. You've got to have football speed, not just track speed, and you've got to block too. If Purdy plays next year like he did last year, do you think he is worth 40 or 50 million? Well, absolutely, he's worth 40 million. The 12th ranked quarterback in the game by pay is at 40 million. There's 4 guys that are at plus 50. So Purdy was an MVP finalist last year. If he delivers that again, top QBR in the league, 50 is the floor. 50 million per year would be the minimum for Brock Purdy. Now, the market also expands every single season. Dak Prescott's going to be up for a contract. If Purdy delivers again, then Mike is right. 55 million a year might be the floor in this situation. RIP to the Visalia Oaks as we fly over Visalia. Beautiful day. Okay, now we're in Porterville. This is my grandpa's old farm in Porterville, Oakshade Farms. We're going to go from Porterville, where this is the old 559 tour from last week. We're going to go from Porterville to, and now, yeah, we're still in Porterville. We're outside of Porterville. You can see the cows running. This is springtime in the valley. Beautiful, right? Will Purdy sign a team-friendly contract? Guys, this is still a year ahead of time. We have no idea what Purdy's going to sign. We have no idea exactly, what he's going to be offered. It's going to be dependent on what happens over the next several months. Let's just wait and see, and then we'll move from there. By the way, thank you, Michael. I was about to text you. I just got your package. Really appreciate it. He says that the mountainside does look amazing. I think it does. This is just east of Porterville. This was last week. Look how green everything is right now in California. Third string All-Pro says he could see Purdy taking team-friendly deals to keep the core roster intact and good talent coming in every year. I mean, that's what Tom Brady did, but he also did it later in his career. It's hard to know right now. We don't have any indication in any direction. Look at this. We got somebody watching from Visalia, watching from Acres and Walnut in Visalia. That's great. All right, guys. Well, we could sit here looking at footage of the farm, or we can talk 49ers, or we could do both at once. Right from first take will go crazy if Purdy gets a $55 million contract. Well, Nick Wright from first take has been wrong about every single step of the Brock Purdy situation so far. So if he goes crazy about that, it's probably a good sign for Brock Purdy and the 49ers. It probably would mean that the contract was well worth it. You think that Purdy doesn't care about money as much? He's too humble. I mean, but at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not you care about money, you care about making what you're worth. So those two are intrinsically connected. I think the question well seems to be drying up. It's funny, we're talking about Brock Purdy right now as we fly over the farm. And Brock Purdy is the quarterback who's driving the tractor. I think he shot a John Deere advertisement in San Francisco, like on the streets of the city. I don't know if it's come out yet, but I saw that on social media. So here we are. I mean, this would be a good spot for Brock Purdy to film his next John Deere commercial. Maybe I'll bring it up to him over the course of this next season. We peek over the hill. That is Lake Success and a dam east of Porterville. Water for those farms. And now we'll spin around and we'll look back on the farm and the Central Valley. That's the 559 area code. I love flying up the hill. I think it's super cool. I think you get, especially at this time of the year on the valley, you get some of the neatest views. This I agree with. Third string all pro says, I don't understand why the mainstream media is so obsessed with paying Purdy. It's still a year away. It's almost like they don't want to see Purdy get paid for some reason. It is odd. There is a big time. And now it's a great story. Final pick of the draft, MVP finalist. But I think it's an obvious next step, right? I mean, the guy was an MVP finalist. He was the leader, number one in the entire NFL in QBR. Of course, he's going to be in line for a big contract once he's eligible. Why is this being treated as if it's some kind of revelation? That's what I don't get about the whole situation. Beautiful view. It is indeed. My dad and I have hiked up this hill before, maybe on that trail we're flying over right now. I do believe the 49ers have enough money left over for a veteran safety if they can get him at a team-friendly deal. And if the market continues to peter out, their chances of getting that team-friendly deal increase. Do I have any idea what Kyle means when he wants to sign Ayuk sooner rather than later? Do not read into it, Steve. You're reading into it way too far. He would rather have the contract drama finished sooner rather than later, just like I think all of us would rather have it done sooner rather than later. I'm tired of talking about the really stupid narratives that seem to arise whenever a negotiation takes a little bit longer than some people want it to take. The Arik Armstead podcast is in the description. I know I had Visalia on the bottom of the screen, but I'm going to put this in the bottom of the screen. Arik Armstead telling his side of the story, the link to the Third and Long podcast with Arik Armstead talking. The full part of it is in the description. In fact, we'll play it one more time here, but make sure you go check out the description to go see the actual podcast from the source.
This is business, but also in football, business mixes with personal. We have personal relationships as coaches and as executives. And, I know them and they know me. They've been around me for 7 years. So business does mix with personal. And that's why these situations are tough because, it's just more than just numbers and we're dealing with people and we're dealing with good people. And so I understand that football business, you have to make tough decisions. And so, they extended an offer to me of $6 million for a 1-year deal with incentives to go up to like 8. And when they sent that over, I did feel extremely disrespected. I don't feel that level of compensation is nowhere near the type of player that I am, and not even just the type of player that I am. What I've committed to the game, what I've committed to my team, what I've committed to the organization and my community.
So that is it from Arik Armstead. Go ahead and check out the description for the full podcast from Armstead. And maybe we'll put up some of that footage from the Central Valley as well. All right. Thanks for watching. Nice big 49ers update show today. Like and subscribe. We have cleared 70K. 75K is next. Let's get there quickly. Everybody hit that sub button, and we will have another celebration when the time comes.